Hearing that narrative.
Right.
Oh, no.
Right.
Wow.
I have, yeah.
Oh, no.
Right.
I didn't know. Like,
yeah, and most people don't. I turned in my notice on June 19th, and then my last day was July 3rd.
You're good and resigned.
Very much so. And I am a firm believer in meaningful work. That matters to me. During my career at my organization where I was formerly employed, I had an amazing almost 6 years. You have to have a level of self-awareness in any situation, I believe, to know when it's your time. People kept asking me about my role and was like, oh my, because, you know, they know me. And so there are some organizational changes, but I didn't run from organizational change. I took a step away from something that no longer benefited me. And I'm not going to be a pawn in anybody's situation or anybody's agenda. I respect people for whatever their hustle might be, but I have to do what works for me also. And I think that's where people get lost, is that when, you know, if you're in the workforce, when your supervisor or your colleague or whomever, when they go home and go to sleep, they're not thinking, how am I going to help Keesha, you know, keep her lifestyle going? You know, how am I going to make Keesha happy? You know, what is it that I can do for Keesha that would make her day to day with us amazing? They're not thinking about that
at all.
At all. And so I have to consider that. And when I had that heart to heart talk with myself, I was like, okay, time is up. I've had an amazing run. It's time to go. So people kept saying, like, should we, should I apply to, what do you think about someone applying to this job? I'm like, it's my time to leave. Right. This isn't ruining anything for anyone else. This might be the world for someone else who comes. I was the first person in the position. I made it my own. And I said the next person that comes in is probably going to be recrafted to be something else, which is essentially one of the reasons I was leaving. It no longer matched the trajectory of my career or my aspirations, period. And I was very vocal about that. I was very vocal with what they were deficient in. I just operate in a spirit of honesty and respectful disclosure. I don't think it's beneficial when you go around just telling people about themselves. But going back to the understanding voice, when you understand where people come from, you can have a more productive conversation. So, yeah.
Wow. So, okay, just to give you a little insight, Keesha and I are a part of a group chat, and we typically talk about social news updates and, just everything, classmates, et cetera, et cetera. But I want to say maybe 2 days ago, Keesha and I had acknowledged something that someone committed suicide. And I talked about how our work is necessary. Not knowing that this chick has quit her job. And many of you may not know this, but I also quit my job about 2 or 3 months ago. And Keesha... Yeah, it was May. Keesha was there. She was there as motivation and inspiration and almost daily. So my question, Keesha, is, okay, so what's next? What are we doing?
So right now, I have not begun. I am one of those people that I do enjoy the workforce. So I'm not anti, working for others and working for organizations. But again, it has to be a meaningful transition. And one of the things we talked about, purposeful operation. One of the things that I helped my former organization do is develop a plan that would integrate the diverse voices around the organization. And that's where I found my passion. I was like, this is it. Like when I saw people not getting rightful promotions, when I saw people not being treated fairly, when I saw people in middle to lower level positions losing their jobs because of poor management, but there's no accountability for managerial structures, I said, that's an issue. That's a problem. We have to address that. And so I started to, one of the things when people, whether you're going into business for yourself, whether you're, going back to the workforce, whatever your agenda is, I think it's important people write the vision, make it plain. That's a serious declaration. And you can conceptualize many things, but you need to see what that looks like. And honestly, we all get tired. We all get exhausted. But my theory is that I believe in rest, so I don't believe you have to stay up all night long to be successful. But I do believe that if you are driven and motivated by it, you're going to make the investment and you're going to put the time there. So when I started to see that financially, as far as finances and time is concerned, that I was willing to dedicate those resources to developing my skills in organizational management and organizational change and employee relations, not the HR function as we know it, but the people function. Employees have lives. They have families. One of the things that just infuriated me, we had one of our associates who had a newborn, 2 small children, and a wife working for our organization, and his family came to have lunch with him every day. After like week 2, everybody started to complain. And I was like, he spends so much time in this office and he doesn't have an opportunity. They come here because that's the moment of quality time for them.
Wow.
He leaves about 7 or 8. His small children are asleep and you're complaining because they're having lunch. Like, are you kidding me? And so this next phase of my life and my career is dedicated to just building culture that invites people to want to work or to whatever they're a part of, even if it's a part of a structure that's voluntary, even within my respective sorority and things like that. We have to be mindful of people. We've lost human decency.
Oh, yes.
And I mean, it's almost gone. And so I am in an accelerated learning program for organizational change, and I will be pursuing another degree. When I'll go back to the workforce, not quite sure yet, but it's necessary for me to develop this element of my career and my skills. And in the meantime, just out of nowhere, seriously, because I haven't, as you know, I haven't made an announcement about my resignation, but I've just gotten and I do believe in favor. So I've gotten all of these just consultation offers and just things are just landing just from having conversations. I had a conversation in Publix that landed me an assignment. I was just like, okay. So back to purposeful living, I think we have to be free in that. We've got to get to a point where we're unapologetic for our gifts. Whether people believe in them or not, when God has anointed you for something, when he has positioned, appointed, and placed you, you have to move in that. We talk about favor and all that kind of stuff all the time. You don't have to believe in God to be successful. You don't have to believe in God to be wealthy. It's not necessary. It's the truth. And going back to the religion versus relationship, religion will confuse you and have you thinking that God is getting ready to sprinkle some fairy dust on your life and heal you. If you have high blood pressure, you've got to go to the gym. You've got to change your diet. You've got to work out. There's an anointing that comes along with your obedience if you are a believer, but it's not a magic potion. So just being diligent and deliberate and intentional and purposeful in whatever you're doing. So that's my next move is just making that happen for me.
What's so funny, Keesha, is that we recently did another podcast episode, and we were talking with an atheist, and some of the same principles were uttered. And it's just amazing to me. It's these are, when you begin to live your life by principle, then religion is hard to grasp, principle, life by principle. Because, one of the aspects of religion that has made it so powerful is that it has offered what I like to call magic. And magic requires no effort on the human part. It's all the responsibility is on the supernatural. So I can sit here and just, twiddle my thumbs and wait for the magic fairy dust, and that's what religion says.
That's
and
right.
That's how religion controls, because you can only get the magic fairy dust from this religion.
But does it happen? That's the thing. What are you waiting for?
Right.
And generally, I think what also locks people into this kind of unfortunate cycle, and I do think it's an unfortunate cycle, because religion as we know it prevents you from freely loving, from freely exchanging, from freely receiving. As Marcus and I were speaking about before this conversation, he doesn't declare himself an atheist, but I dated someone who kind of dissolved his relationship with God. That was my first encounter. That's it. The breakup was hard, but I learned so much from that relationship. Now that I attribute to my spiritual center, because again, I didn't say initially. So when you're not mature, you do things that don't make sense. Right. So I'm asking God can God, just make him do this and just make him see this. This is insane. This is crazy. We are free will agents. This is not how it goes. And I essentially changed my prayer and my conversation to one of gratitude, one of thanks. Thank you for the experience. Thank you for the clarity. I don't have permission. I spent a lot of time telling this man what he should be doing, what's going to work for him, or if you just do this, you would see this and you would see that. He saw heartbreak his whole life. He saw his mom die. He saw his dad die. People betrayed him that he didn't think would ever betray him. How dare I? This is what religion does. Religion has you beating them with all of this spiritual garb that doesn't translate. They know real life. They know real pain. They know real hurt. And so I'm so glad for my teaching in my church and just my understanding of the word and my relationship with God, that I quickly came to a place of understanding. I quickly came to a place of, you don't reserve the right to tell this man that he's not hurt. You don't reserve the right to tell him how he feels. You can take ownership of the fact that you may not have intended to have these afflictions on him, but you don't have the right to tell him that they didn't happen. And that's what's happening in the world. Religion has people thinking they have the right to tell people what's going on with them and what they should be doing and why certain things are happening to them. That is false. Some people die of a heart attack because they've overeaten their entire lives, not because God didn't show them favor. And I know that God is a favorable God, but I even sometimes struggle with, God wasn't ready for me to go yet, or ready for that. You know what I mean? I get it, but let's be mindful that we're in a world with people who are still trying to translate this message of, why do these people believe what they believe? And we can't get through if we don't start with the core, and the core is love. And if you don't love genuinely and unconditionally and without those parameters, you can't get through to anybody, I don't think.
No, you can't. One thing you said a while ago that I'd like to unpack and spend a little more time on is when you've been called to do something. One thing that you all may not realize is that, I, like Keesha, was in a job and very unhappy, and I had to be self-aware to know that my season was changing. It was time for me to leave that job and start operating in my purpose, operating in my anointing. And I was scared to death. Because, quite naturally, we get used to this human condition of, how am I going to pay my bills? How am I going to survive? What am I going to do about health care? And I really want to talk to whomever out there is listening who may feel called to do something else. You are so unhappy right now and so unsettled. but you know that you're being called to do something else. You know that your passions may lie elsewhere.